Anyways, next thing we're gonna go ahead and do is move on to the front. The front's gonna be a little bit different, like I told you guys earlier, and I've shown you the entire video. We're gonna go ahead and use these spindles, and basically we're gonna go ahead and just take off the axle nut and then slide the entire hub off, then put in our new, I forget what it's called, the coilover itself, LOL. We'll go ahead and put a new one in, and then we should just drop it down. I, again, have no idea what the measurement is, but you can see we still have we have a pretty good clearance on this one too. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get to that. Alright guys, here we're at the front, and it's gonna be pretty straightforward what we're gonna do. It's just a few extra steps we didn't have to do in the back. Basically what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and take the brake caliper off, and then we're going to go ahead and loosen the axle nut so we can slide our entire hub and disc assembly off. And then once that's done, there's two 17mm on the bottom that we're going to release the bottom of the strut tube, and then 3 on the top, which I think are 14 again. And the only other thing would be this brake line. It's got a little clip on the back, and then once we take that off, the entire strut tube will be fully fine to come out. So yeah, let's get right to it. It should be pretty straightforward. Get this cap down over here, and then inside we have a cotter pin, and what we're going to go ahead and do, zoom in on that for you guys. Alright, we have a cotter pin in here. We're going to go ahead and take it out. You're supposed to replace this. It's just preventative maintenance, guys. It's like 20 cents for a cotter pin. Just get a new one. Then we're going to go ahead and take the nut off, and the entire hub and disc will come off with it. Alright, now this is just a little kind of guard thing to keep the nut in place. Take that out, set it in there. Now we're going to go ahead and grab this guy. Let me go and grab the socket for it. Alright guys, well I misspoke earlier. This is a 27mm. I think it's just a little bit smaller because there is still play on it, so maybe a 26 would work. But a 27 has been working for me. I've used it a couple times now because you don't need to get this really tight. So we're just going to go ahead, take it off. It should be really easy. This should not be very difficult not to get off. Alright, we'll put the nut aside as well. And now this entire assembly is going to come off. There is a washer and a bearing that we're going to want to catch. It does go conical in, I believe. We'll double check when it comes out. But just something that you guys want to be aware of. So you can go ahead and prepare. Go ahead and move this stuff over here. Get something to catch it. So you can kind of just wiggle it forward and it will fall out. You can see it fell out like that. That is the direction we want to put it back in. Go ahead and set that down and take off the rest of our entire assembly. Now you can see there's a lot of grease in here. We're going to go ahead and put grease on the new spindles as well as re-grease our old hub and assembly as well. So we're going to go ahead and set this aside, make sure not to get grease on anything, and we're going to get our dust shield off next, if we want our dust shield. Alright guys, now in order to get the dust shield off, if you have something like this, it's basically a socket with a Phillips head in it. It makes it a lot easier. So with a traditional screwdriver, you just don't really have that much leverage. So if you take this, we can go and just push it in here where this Phillips head is. We'll just make sure it seats nice and easy, and we'll just kind of twist it. And it comes right off. These usually get pretty seized because it gets hot, and so from the brakes, as well as a bunch of dust and water from the wheels. So these are kind of difficult to get off. So this is a really good investment. One of these little Phillips head adapter sockets. You can see this last one's giving me trouble even with this socket, so I'm gonna get a little bit better force on it here. Alright, well unfortunately this one last screw that I couldn't get with our thing, it's really held on there, and I don't want to really strip it anymore. I'll try getting it out once I get the spindle off. But what we're going to go ahead and do next is, I believe they're 17 mils on the bottom. Let me check. Yeah, we have two 17 mils down here. It's pretty much like right there and right there. And what we're going to go ahead and do is undo those. They should be pretty easy. Again, leverage is your best friend. So let me go ahead. If you have, I have this red bar that I used it for the brakes. Just go ahead and stick it on and then extend your reach, and that'll help you get it off just fine. Alright, finally got this one off. You can see it's just a pretty short bolt. The other one is, I don't know, you might have to move the steering rack back and forth in order to get to it. I'm going to keep at it. Alright, finally got those two out. So basically now what we can do is, there's an upper, let me show you. Alright, you can't even see back here. Let me go ahead and get a light. Alright, so that hole in the middle of the screen is where we just took the nut out, and there's an upper and lower portion there. We're going to go ahead and just get a flap light and kind of just shove it in between them. You can try pushing down on the lower control arm here. There is the sway bar, so that does kind of give you some resistance. But basically we're just going to go ahead and separate these two, and there's a nut in the center that holds on the pillow mount bushing thing underneath there that we're going to go ahead and have to get up over. But once that's out, it should be pretty good. And then we can go ahead and just go pop the hood and take off the 3 nuts on top. Alright guys, I apologize I didn't have any video of me getting this off. It took quite a long time, a lot of prying, a lot of curse words in order to get it off. Basically, you kind of got to get it up over this hump right here, which is like a ring that it sits on. Then you got to get it up over the nut, and then you got to get up over the stud. It's just a really big pain because the control arm right now, it's tensioned from the tension arm and the sway bar, and it wants to go upwards. So you're trying to push that down to get this up over it. It was not happy about that. But I finally did get it off. This is the hardest part in my opinion. I've done this twice before now. And now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take, I already loosened these. You can see this one's held on because it's kind of at an angle down there. But these are 14 mils as well. Take those 3 off and they should have a washer underneath. You want to keep all this stuff, guys, for the new stuff. But once those are off, we can go ahead and pull this old piece out of here. Alright guys, I went ahead and got the new Powertrix coilovers in here. One thing that I did spend a solid amount of time on is these are directional because you have camber plates on the top. So you want to make sure you want to find the Powertrix coilover with the camber plate facing this way that will fit in because these are like a 1/4 of an inch closer together than these two are. So it is directional. I've got the other one over there. But other than that, we can go ahead and tighten these guys up. And as you may notice, it is actually significantly shorter than our lower control arm needed to be for the other one. So it is going to have to bring it up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and use our jack again to push this up so we can get these bolts on. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and just make sure that this is all set properly with our little fork things that they gave us. Then we'll drop it and see how it looks. Alright guys, one thing I want to note real quick on this camber plate on the top, this rear bolt here was hitting right there. So what I went ahead and did is I pulled the camber forward. I just loosened all these. It was a 5mm hex head, and I just pulled it forward. I'm probably going to get an alignment on this at some point just to dial in the camber real quick just to make sure. I don't really want that much camber on here, but one thing I did notice, there's extra little bolt holes in the center. So if we did need to push it back again to get the correct camber we wanted, we could undo that and then put it in this other one. It's really just to have 2 on each side, and since that's really the only one that was hitting, is we could do that. But I'm going to see what it looks like once we get the car on the ground. It's still off the thing, so we don't really have a good idea of it yet. But we're going to go ahead and just make sure that this all works out. Alright guys. As you can see, I went ahead and put the hub and rotor back on, and basically all we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to go ahead and torque this down. I believe it's about 20 foot-pounds. The right number should be flashing on your screen right now, but I'm going to go ahead and torque this down to that, and then what we're going to go ahead and do is loosen it by about 1/4 of a turn. is 20. And what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna get to a nice 90-degree angle, and we're gonna loosen it by a quarter of a turn. Perfect, just like that. And now this should really spin. We're gonna go ahead and loosen it a little bit more. Perfect, just like that. And now we can go ahead and put that little weird hex nut keeper thing on and the cotter pin back through. Alright guys, well I went ahead and finished everything up. Don't forget to take the weird little dingly thing that changes the dampening in the front. I zip tied it around the little brake line bracket so that it can't come off. And that's pretty much it for buttoning everything up. One thing I wanted to mention, like I was saying earlier, this was hitting. There is a secondary hole inside there that I just moved it up to. And I set them both about to a 1 degree outward camber. I don't know if that's exactly correct. You probably want to get an alignment. That's kind of where both of them just naturally set. I've changed this one and that's where that one kind of was at after everything. So they're both about 1 positive. I don't know if that directly correlates or not. Or if those are even degrees, it might even be like half a degree or something. But that's where I'm at right now. One thing I will say, I went a bit too low on this front one here. On that little picture I did earlier, where you can see the length from the top of the spring to the base of the bottom part, I guess. I did 9.5, and that was a little bit too low for me. It's you can see if you can see, it's actually like a decent height and it looks nice. I'm probably gonna raise it to about 10.5, or about another inch or so. Mainly the only reason is because I scraped it getting it into my driveway, but that's not too bad. One thing I will want to say, guys, is I forgot to preload the springs. I didn't think I needed to, but I went ahead and talked to some people and they say you definitely should. When I took it for a drive, it was very boaty. It really bounced when I went over bumps, like every bump, not just the big ones. So I will go ahead and say you should preload your springs. I've heard 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch to start at. You can kind of change it depending on how racy you want to get. But that's where I'm going to leave you guys. If you have any questions about what I did, if you think I did something wrong and you need me to make a correction, drop a comment down below and I will definitely answer you guys. But yeah, this is Power Tricks coilover installation, and I hope it helped you guys, and I will see you next time.